in a landmark ruling against Eskom and load shedding, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria unanimously ruled that load shedding violated multiple constitutional rights. The court has ordered the Minister of Electricity to ensure that all public health institutions, including hospitals, public schools and police stations, are exempt from load shedding by the end of January. To unpack this judgment, we're joined now by legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. The court has found that government has dismally failed the country and its people. What does this judgment essentially mean?
Good morning to you and also to your viewers. Well, it's saying to government you have failed in executing the duties, most importantly, sticking to what the Constitution is saying. There's a Bill of Rights that says we are entitled to certain things which are supposed to come to us. In order to effect that effectively, there needs to be electricity. You can't go to a police station if there's no electricity. You're not going to get the services that you want. Most importantly, you can't go to a healthcare facility. And the issue of electricity has been one which has engulfed South Africa for more than a decade, if I'm not mistaken, if not lesser. Then within the fourth or even fifth or sixth year, you would have taken a contingency plan to say, what is it that we can do so that we're able to stay afloat? What is it that we can do so that we're able to render the services and able to protect the rights of South Africans? I think that's what the court was saying yesterday, to say to government, you've got all these important things and roles that you're supposed to do, legislation that you need to comply with, financial resources that are there. You are simply failing to use those effectively. And if you look at our constitution, even from the side of the president, Section 85 employs you, Mr. President, to make sure that every department is working optimally. Section 100 allows provincial departments, even national, to go down to local municipalities to come back and say, this is what you are going to do in order to make sure that you are effective in what you are doing. And lastly, Section 237 says, all the services that must be rendered as per our Constitution must be done so diligently and within the shortest amount of time. If you're not able to comply with that or provide a plausible reason to the court as to why you have failed to do so, then definitely the court has every right to issue out this directive to say, go and do your work. That is basically what the court was saying yesterday.
So the applicants had argued that load shedding had become a pressing human rights concern and that government's response had perhaps undermined the fundamental rights of citizens. What did you make of those arguments presented?
It is quite correct. You can't be persistent with a problem for plus minus 10 years and there's no plausible responses or no plausible solutions in which you are coming up with. The most important one would be, on a short-term basis, what is it that you can be able to provide as a solution? And on a long-term basis, what is it that we can be able to do? And South Africa has been able to prove that it is able to work under pressure. Let's look at the COVID pandemic that we recently got out of. Yes, there are certain things that did not go well, but it did not cause a complete catastrophe in which our healthcare systems collapsed. We were able to stay afloat. Then the question is, why don't you apply the same type of knowledge, vigor, and the need or the yearn to make sure that you're able to provide electricity to individuals as you would have done earlier? So that is what the court was saying, to say we can't allow the inefficiencies of government and the government officials to fall, or the people of South Africa to bear the brunt of whatever that is happening. They've gone to the extent of coming to court and saying to court, we need your protection in this particular instance. We are being abused. There's someone who's not doing their job somewhere, and they are not doing things, or there are no repercussions which are then being taken against them. So as people of South Africa, can you please to come to our rescue and force them to do their job? That is what we are looking for.
In forcing them to do their job, the judge also said that if courts could end load shedding, they would, but of course they can't, and it's not even their function. He attributed the energy crisis to government's failure in the 1990s to open the energy sector to competition with the private sector and timelessly implement the independent power producer procurement program. That in itself being some of the very strong argument and perhaps assessment put forward by the judge. With all of that said, and the current situation of load shedding, how much pressure do you think this will place now on government officials to ensure that there is some sort of a turnaround, because the deadline is quite tight here? The end of January, there needs to be some implementation of this judgment.
Definitely there's going to be a lot of pressure. I think what we're going to start to see is a lot of emergency procurements which are going to take place. And you know that the minute you open that door, there are many type of abuses that can take place, a number of things or collusion that can take place. So I think from the side of law enforcement agencies, they must open up their eyes and say, this is what we want to see. Make sure that you are doing things which are above the law. Otherwise, you are going to come through. But For me, it's the political principles which are at play here, or that you must look at. Because if everything goes well, we say through that political principle, you are doing good, you should remain in your position. But when things go wrong, we find any other reason to blame other than the political principle themselves. Even when it comes to those which are fully employed, like your director generals and all the other senior management individuals that are there, they are employed for a specific reason. Provide innovative solutions so that you're able to deal with the problems that you have. If you fail to do so, that means you fail to provide or to render your services in an optimal manner, or in a manner in which we expect it to receive from the side of South Africa. That means you must go and find new individuals that are going to come in. I would have thought that by today, they are going to be sitting in one room and saying, how is it that we can implement this particular processes much better? Let's find innovative ways of dealing with this particular issue. Let's even extend it to South Africans to say, can you please try and provide the reasons or solutions as to how we can be able to render and deal with these particular processes? And the most basic one is this. Go to your municipalities and say to each municipality, can you please determine what time and point in time you need electricity or excessive electricity? Are there any points in which you can give away those particular portions? So even the schedules and the times in which the blackouts take place are calculated as per the needs of this particular municipality. You then go back to business and say, we know that you need to run optimally. What other ways can you then be able to implement? What sort of alternative energy can be sourced so that you're able to move at all times? And the economy of South Africa is not disturbed simply because we don't have electricity. If you do not bring these key individuals into one room and say to them, let's find key ways and quick ways in providing solutions. What's the interim one? What's the long-term one? What's the budget for each, and where we can be able to get the money? We're going to continue having this problem. And by the way, it has persisted for almost a decade. It seems that they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to fix these problems. And maybe it's high time that they send it back to members of the public to say, and the private sector, we failed on our side. Can you please assist us so that you can be able to keep South Africa alive?
What are government's legal options? I mean, is there room or grounds for appeal in this matter?
Yes, there is. Remember that you're still in the provincial division. So you can go to the Supreme Court of Appeals and say the judges have got it wrong in the interpretation of the law. Even if you fail there, you still have the Constitutional Court that you can go to in terms of what has been implemented, especially from the side of the timelines. They may come back and say, with the capacity that we have, the laws that are applicable, especially when it comes to procurement, it's impossible that we would have been able to finish the procurement of generators, for example, within the shortest amount of time. Can you please extend it, or can you come to another conclusion in terms of excluding us in terms of the merits and funding in our favor as government? So there's still opportunity to go and appeal the matter, but I think the chances of that are quite slim if you look at the content and the manner in which the judges were lamenting or providing their reasons of why they've decided the manner in which they've done.
Very well. Thank you so much for that very thorough analysis. Mpumelelo Zikalala, legal analyst there, reacting to the court ruling that load shedding is unconstitutional and that exempting hospitals, schools and police stations needs to happen, with the deadline set for the end of January next year.